Thank you very much. Now, when it comes to the royal family, by the way, I'm a member of the Privy Council advising the King. I advise him to pay tax. He hasn't done it yet, but there we are. There's two five-letter words I associate with the royal family in this country. One of them is money, the other one is greed. And we have in this country a royal mint and a national debt. That's the name of my latest book, by the way. Quick plug for that. Royal mint because they take the money, national debt because we owe it and we pay it. And they have this insufferable arrogance that they pay for nothing. They expect everything to be given to them by the state or by somebody else. A free holiday here from somebody and a helicopter trip there from somebody else. Money from the treasury all flows our ways. It's a one-way street. They never give anything back. They just collect money indefinitely. Relentless and constant accumulation of money, constant and relentless greed they demonstrate. How is it that the King, George III, was bankrupt in 1760, and how is it now that Charles is worth at least £1.8 billion? Where does that money come from? I'll tell you what, it's not on the 230 Epsom, was it? It's come from us, from the taxpayer largely. Where's the money come from? It's come from the public purse. You know, they never have enough. Charles lobbied for a change to the financing of the monarchy. The civil list was abolished in 2011 after 251 years and replaced by the sovereign grant. What's the consequence of that? The last year of the civil list in 2011 gave the royals directly 7.9 million from this source of money. The sovereign grant this year gives them 132.1 million. 7.9 to 132.1. Who else has seen that level of inflation over the last 15 years at a time when people are struggling to pay their bills? It's obscene. Secondly, we got the duchies, which were regarded in Victorian times as government departments, but somehow, through a process of royal osmosis, they've become so-called private estates. But it's a not private estate that's regulated by legislation that has to produce figures every year for the Treasury, which doesn't pay corporation tax and doesn't pay capital gains tax. But all the money is going into some sort of royal fruit machine. William and Charles pull the lever every year and they get over £20 million, more than 100 times the salary of the Prime Minister for doing nothing. Those duchies should be wrapped up to the Crown Estate and the money should be going to the Treasury to pay for schools, hospitals and the rest of the public sector. How is it that the Duchy of Cornwall, brilliant exposure by Channel 4 and the Sunday Times, is charging the NHS almost £1 million a year to park ambulances in an empty warehouse not very far from here? How is it that the Duchy of Cornwall charges soldiers fighting for king and country to practice on Dartmoor? They pay to practice to protect king and country. How is it that the duchies charge the Royal Navy to moor ships next to quaysides? How is it they even charge the scouts money for rent for a scout hut? They are greedy, they are greedy, they are greedy beyond belief. And what's William done since he took over the Duchy of Cornwall? He has changed the makeup of the board. Who's he brought on? People to look after the duchy, to the environment, the people who rent houses. No, he's brought on investment bankers and property developers. That's his priority, making more money for himself out of the Duchy of Cornwall, so everybody else. Then it's the tax exemptions. Queen Elizabeth didn't pay tax between 52 and 93. What an enormous benefit that's given them. That partly accounts for the 1.8 billion. But there's no inheritance tax paid from Charles on what the Queen gave him privately. Not talking about the state, possessions like the crown jewels, I'm talking about private possessions. Why did Charles pay no inheritance tax on over £500 million of jewellery he inherited, on £100 million stamp collection, on Monet paintings, on Fabergé eggs? Why did he pay no inheritance tax on that? Why is he the only person in the country exempt from inheritance tax? Then there's all the gifts. If you receive a gift as a member of Parliament or a minister, I can tell you this, or a councillor, you have to declare that. And if it's worth more than a certain amount of money, £50 it was in my day, then you cannot keep it. You have to give it to the state, or you have to buy it from the state according to a value independently assessed. The royal family does not have that process. They decide individually, when gifts are given to them, whether they are belonging to the state or to themselves. They decide individually. So a whole lot of stuff Aston Martin for Charles wasn't declared, he kept it himself. Jewels for Camilla, kept, not given to the state. They just accumulate gifts which belong to us as a country and keep them for themselves. That is called theft. And the theft, of course, goes back to the Koh-i-Noor diamond and everything else that's associated with the theft from the monarchy in the past as well. Then there's all the dodgy investments which were exposed, all the dodgy investments in overseas offshore territories, sometimes with very dubious investments. And when the royal family was challenged on that, they said, well, there's no benefit to us from doing that any more than the bank. Well, in that case, why didn't they go down to local Lloyd's Bank and put all the money in there? No, they wanted to avoid paying tax by putting their money into dodgy offshore regimes. This is all underpinned by three things, very quickly. By deference, they rely on deference, they rely on people not asking too many questions and saying, yes, sir, thank you very much, we'll queue up and we'll take the benefit of a handshake from you. It's by secrecy. They've exempted themselves effectively from the Freedom of Information Act. No other part of the public sector has exempted themselves, and that's contrary to the assurance I was given as a Member of Parliament that they would be treated the same as the rest of the public sector. And thirdly, legal threats. Here's one example. Someone took a picture of Charles shooting. They don't like to have pictures taken of them shooting because that's not an image they want in the papers. He phoned the police and said, this person's taking a picture of me. And the police came along and said, he's on a public footpath, he can take a picture. And the man was so incensed he went to the papers. Charles's reaction was to phone up the Mail, it was a paper that was given to, and said, I'm going to threaten you, and if you publish that story. Well, good for the Mail, they published it. That's how we know about it. But spineless governments also. Here's the last point. Andrew, I haven't talked about Andrew, I mean, there's so much you can talk about, other people talk about Andrew, but Andrew has done us a favour, actually, because what he's done, he's opened the Pandora's box. He's got people asking about the royal family. The assumption that they're there for the public good has been questioned big time. And the more the Pandora's box is opened, the more nasty things will crawl out of it. So thank you, Andrew, for that. You're going to pay the price, I hope, but so will the rest of the royal family. Well, if they pay the price, I mean, give us the money, which is ours.